My God, I hate drugs.
The Supreme Court is set to decide soon if it will uphold the ouster of Maria Lourdes Sereno as Chief Justice. But how's the tribunal doing without Sereno at the helm as it celebrates its 117th anniversary today? Our Anjo Alimario reports.
Business as usual. That's the assurance of Acting Chief Justice Antonio Carpio. He says the Supreme Court, minus ousted Chief Justice Maria Lourdes Sereno, is functioning normally with only 14 justices deciding on cases. He says the High Court will hand down its final ruling on Sereno's quo warranto case, hopefully this month. They are governed by the rule of majority, and that's how democracy works, he explains. Carpio voted with 5 other justices to junk the ouster case against Sereno, but they lost to 8 of their colleagues who wanted to unseat the chief magistrate. Whatever the court decides, Carpio says, they just have to accept it.
The Supreme Court is an institution. We are functioning normally. We have been deciding cases normally. We will be holding oral arguments normally. So we are doing our work normally. The Supreme Court decides and we just must follow. I belong to the minority. I lost, but that's it. I mean, you win, you lose, but we are governed by the rule of the majority. That's how our democracy works. Whether it's correct or wrong, we just have to accept it because that's how we can move on.
Carpio says they will decide on Sereno's fate soon because they also want to move on. Anjo Alimario, CNN Philippines.
Sereno is no longer on the Supreme Court website. CNN Philippines checked the site and Sereno's name and photo have been removed. The space allotted for the Chief Justice now only shows the Supreme Court logo. The Court of Appeals has ruled that fees paid by government to Sereno and other private lawyers in a previous arbitration case are illegal. The case against the builder of the NAIA Terminal 3 is more commonly known as the PIATCO case. PIATCO stands for the Philippine International Air Terminals Company. The appellate court says the government violated the policy on hiring foreign and private lawyers. The total cost of the arbitration proceedings amounted to $6 million. The court says there was no justification for the government to hire foreign law firms in the case, as the Office of the Solicitor General was more familiar with Philippine laws. The CA also says that the cost of the arbitration was not only irregular and unnecessary, but also extravagant, excessive, and unconscionable. Labor officials are set to announce new minimum wage rates this month to help address increasing prices of basic goods and services. Is this really good news? Our Rex City Meteor reports the move may force retailers like supermarkets to raise prices even more.
Labor Undersecretary Jing Paras says new minimum wage rates will take effect across the country before June ends. This after Labor Secretary Silvestre Bello has tasked regional wage boards to study a wage hike as consumer prices jack up.
The wage board has already met and they're now coming up with their recommendation. So pretty soon, magkakaroon na po tayo ng issuance kung magkano ba yung itataas.
Paras says regional wage boards will submit their final recommendations to Bello as soon as he returns to the country. But one thing is for sure, the proposed 750 peso legislated national minimum wage is a no-go unless passed by Congress.
Magkaiba-iba po yung mga region, no? Hindi po pare-pareho ang economic activity.
But an association of supermarkets says the wage increase may trigger a domino effect and force their members to slightly hike product prices. This is apart from their planned gradual price hikes spurred by the tax reform law.
So because of that, all will have to adjust their margins. When that happens, it's not just the manufacturer who adjusts their margin. Some operations like retail outlets may have to adjust margins too.
The association's president, Stephen Kua, also manages a supermarket near Welcome Rotonda in Manila. Kua says small and medium players like him are caught in the middle. Recently, they increased prices of their goods because of higher taxes. But higher prices also drive consumers to buy products from bigger players that offer the same at lower prices. So they have no choice but to settle with moderate price hikes for less profit and downsize their operations.
So we're seriously considering closing this whole section para paupan na lang sa tao. We'll just get rental income na lang rather than carry all these products. We used to have 9 checkout counters. Now we have 5, no?
The Trade Department, just like the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, believes the inflation rate in general will go down in the coming months. The DTI is also appealing to manufacturers and retailers to stay within suggested retail prices.
Kung pwede po, maliit lang because this will be part of the computation sa minimum wage na itataas.
But for Kuwa, because of limited profits, the SRP can also potentially kill small and medium supermarket owners like him. Rex Remitio, CNN, Philippines.
The Philippines is among the world's top worst countries for working people. That's according to a survey of the International Trade Union Confederation Global Rights Index. The others on the top 10 list are Algeria, Bangladesh, Cambodia, Colombia, Egypt, Guatemala, Kazakhstan, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey. Among the common indicators of poor working conditions in these countries are mass arrests, state repression, arrest of union leaders, and discrimination. 142 countries were evaluated due to, quote, intimidation and dismissals, violence, and repressive laws. The Philippines was also on the list last year. The Court of Appeals is staying firm. Filipino death row inmate Mary Jane Veloso cannot testify against her alleged illegal recruiters. That's unless she's able to come home to the Philippines from Indonesia. The Santo Domingo Nueva Ecija Regional Trial Court earlier allowed Veloso to send a testimony against her alleged recruiters, Cristina Serio and Julius Lacanilao. The appellate court reversed this decision in December last year and denied a motion for reconsideration on Tuesday for lack of merit. The court says the government should instead convince Indonesia to allow Veloso to return temporarily to the Philippines to take the witness stand. Veloso was sentenced to death in October 2010 after Indonesian authorities found heroin in her suitcase. She was supposed to be executed in April 2015 but was granted a last-minute reprieve. The Foreign Affairs thanks the government of Slovakia for offering to bring home the remains of a Filipino worker who died after a street attack in the capital, Bratislava. The department, quoting a report from the Philippine Embassy in Vienna, says the family of Henry John Acorda has accepted the offer of the Slovakian government to repatriate his remains next week. Philippine Ambassador to Austria, Maria Cleofe Natividad, says the repatriation is scheduled for June 13, Wednesday. Natividad adds the Slovakian government has offered to provide an aircraft to carry the remains of Acorda, as well as his mother and 2 siblings. Acorda died on May 31 from injuries he sustained a few days after he was mauled by a Slovak man. He was trying to stop the man from harassing his fellow Filipino female companion when the incident happened. CCTV footage shows the man knocked Acorda to the ground and kicked him violently in the head, leaving him unconscious. The suspect is now in custody and has been charged with manslaughter. Sad news in the restaurant and TV industries. Anthony Bourdain, a gifted storyteller and writer who took CNN viewers around the world, has died. CNN confirmed Bourdain's death today and said the cause was suicide. Bourdain was in France working on an upcoming episode of his award-winning CNN series. His close friend Eric Rippert, a French chef, found Bourdain unresponsive in his hotel room this morning. Bourdain was a master of his crafts, first in the kitchen and then in the media. Through his TV shows and books, he explored the human condition and helped audiences think differently about food, travel, and themselves. He advocated for marginalized populations and campaigned for safer working conditions for restaurant staffs. He was 61. CNN Philippines had the opportunity to interview Bourdain when he visited the country for the World Street Food Congress in June last year. Speaking to our senior anchor and correspondent Pinky Webb, Bourdain shared what he thought about Filipino cuisine.
Filipino food, of course, that's what we're really looking forward to. What you have to say about Filipino food? How would you describe our cuisine?
I think it's a work in progress as far as how to describe it. I think Americans and American palates are just now starting to become seriously interested and embrace and investigate and learn. I think certain Filipino dishes are more likely to take root and take hold more quickly than others. And I think, the brightest, best hope for a representational, advanced team, I think Sisig is perfectly positioned to win the hearts and minds of the world as a whole.
And the reason for that is, what is it about sisig that you're saying it's the number one? Is it the number one food, you think? Number one Filipino food?
Well, certainly not statistically, but I think it's the most likely to convince people abroad who have had no exposure to Filipino food to maybe look further and investigate further beyond sisig. I think that's the one that's going to hook them.
What was in Anthony Bourdain that seemed to love sisig?
It's hot, sizzling, crispy, sticky, delicious bits of pork with many textures. Goes really, really well with beer. It's casual. It's accessible. It's exactly what you need after a few beers, and that's a perfect food.
And it's cheap.
That helps.
Aside from sisig, I know you said that a while ago also during your talk. What's the second food that you really love?
Look, I love
Philippines?
lechon, of course, but that's easy. Everybody loves lechon. Anywhere in the world. Adobo, a good adobo, sinigang.
Netizens are heartbroken over Bourdain's death. On Twitter, @Recorsino says he's deeply saddened by the chef's passing. He sends his condolences to Bourdain's family and friends. @The Rachel Fisher says, quote, really sad waking up and hearing about Anthony Bourdain. Another Twitter user says, this one hits home. This netizen asks, quote, how can someone like Anthony Bourdain take his life? I'm devastated. He had everything to live for, traveled the world, tasted the world. We never know the battles everyone faces, probably meds. R.I.P. Tony, unquote. Bourdain's death happened after fashion designer Kate Spade died in an apparent suicide at her Manhattan apartment on Tuesday. Bourdain was not just fond of Filipino food, he also enjoyed the beer. Later, we take you back to the night the renowned chef got to grab some drinks with some Pinoys.